Hey guys, welcome back to Relentless Talk Radio. This is this month's Relentless Biker, and I'm here with Brad. Brad, how do you say your last name?
Dreifuss, like Richard, but spelled differently.
Like Dreifuss, like Richard Dreifuss, but Dreifuss. Mm-hmm. Gotcha, cool. So we have Chelly Rose, who's also trying to tune on, and she's having some technical difficulties. So we'll go ahead and start our conversation and hope that Chelly can join us here in a minute. So tell everybody who you are and what it is that you do, both on and off the bike.
It's funny to actually find myself on a biker podcast in the first place. Quite an honor. I enjoyed riding for over 20 years, but never would have imagined being on a biker podcast. So I am an emergency physician and public health professional and have been for about 13 years practicing medicine, and have been working in capacity development in places like Uganda and Ghana for emergency care, and work here in Tucson clinically. And then since COVID broke out, I've been working to build a group called HCW Hosted that is working to better support healthcare workers and their families to help make them or help have them be more resilient in our fight against COVID.
Well, first of all, I have to say, Chelly is still having some trouble getting on, so we're hoping that she can try again and catch us mid-conversation. So if I'm a little distracted, it's because I'm talking with her via text. And if not, we'll have to reschedule her for a different time. So first of all, let me say thank you for your service. Like, as a physician, the amount of education and time and energy that you have to put into being at the place where you can walk into an emergency room is just huge. So I just want to say thank you so much for the work that you're doing. And also, one of the things I love about you as a physician, and I think this is really you are interested in earning revenue. It's not that you're not interested in earning revenue, because we all should be, but you're really the kind of doctor that believes in care and health care, as opposed to, let me check and see if your insurance covers this or not kind of thinking. And your heart is really in the right place. And that was one of the reasons why I chose the topic today, Heart for Service, because I think one of the things that people don't really, I'm going to say some people, okay, don't know about us who love to ride motorcycles is also generally pretty much across the board, in my experience, in my 35 years of riding a motorcycle, have a heart for service. And so you are an example of that on both sides of things, because you're a biker who rides, and you are also a physician who gives back in the emergency room. So thank you for the work that you do in that area. How long have you been riding?
So I've been riding since just before my 20th birthday, actually. Yeah, it's a funny story how it started.
How did it start? That's the next question. What was the first part? What was the start?
So I went to college in small liberal arts, doing small liberal arts school in Ohio, and I was just coming back from a summer after freshman year in Boston, and I roll into town, and my mom was driving me back, and I saw this absolutely beautiful, gorgeous 1980. It was actually a motorcycle.
Kind of same thing, right? So go ahead.
That's the name of it, but yeah. But it was a 1986 Honda Nighthawk 450. And I had just worked for the whole summer, and I kind of had always wanted to ride. And so I was like, all right, it's parked in front of this restaurant. I'm going to walk in the restaurant and see whose it is. And that's exactly what I did. It turns out it was a sous chef's. And I asked him if he'd consider selling it. He's like, what do you want to give me for it? I'm like, I don't know. What do you want? And I'm sure it was a little higher than it should have been, but it's like $2,600. I'm like, all right. He's like, do you know how to ride? I was like, I've been poaching mountain bike trails for years, but no, I've never ridden a motorcycle. Like, well, let's take a couple days and I'll teach you. So we did that. And then I got my license, took it to my dorm for the first time, parked it in front of in back of a flower truck, went inside, got some stuff, and then proceeded to directly pop the clutch right into the back of that flower truck. I know, right? It's such a classic story. Well, I went inside to clean myself up. My headlight was broken. My hands were torn up. and I got back out and the flower truck was gone.
Oh.
And so for the rest of the 3 years, I would see these flowers being delivered to people around campus with this big ass dent in the back of their gate of this minivan. And I'm like, yep. So that was the beginnings of my motorcycling. And it's just been incredible. My father-in-law got into riding, and yeah, he's an orthopedic surgeon. So it's like, all right, this is great. So if you're going to ride, let's go.
So your dad was an orthopedic surgeon?
My father-in-law.
Your father-in-law?
Yeah, I'm the first in my family to go into medicine.
Wow.
But people are like, I can't believe
it. The first story, because it's always like, for me, it was my cousin Anthony, my cousin Lisa and Linda had a cousin on the other side of their family. Okay, so my cousin Johnny by association, really. He got in trouble from Jersey. He got in trouble when I was about 8, and he got kind of transported to Vermont to be with my Uncle Nick, who was like going to get him in shape, right? He rolled up on a Harley Davidson chopper, and my uncle had a fat boy. No, my uncle had a fat boy, and they were like riding off together, and I was hooked. It wasn't until I was 18 when I met the first biker boy, though, that I kind of tapped into that love. But I understand that feeling of seeing a gorgeous motorcycle and being like, wait a minute, and just like squirrel, and you just can't look away. That happened to me when I was about 8 years old. It was probably less than that, because I don't think I was even a gymnast yet. So I started gymnastics when I was 8. So I was probably like 6 or 7 when I had the first biker boy experience, and it was with my cousin by association and my uncle, who are, 2 people who I love the most, right? So I love that first moment when you're transfixed by a motorcycle. So I'm gonna poor Chelly's pen. So this is you as a surgeon, or as an emergency room doctor. I just love that, right? That's awesome. And here's some really awesome photographs of you on your Ducati. So I love that you're not a Harley rider and that you're riding a different kind of bike. You're a Ducati rider, and you have a BMW too, right?
A BMW, and I've got a Suzuki DRZ 400, which needs some work, and it's for sale.
So I love that, because these images are great, by the way. Who was the photographer that took these?
So that's Patrick Mulligan. I can send you the link later. He'd appreciate it. And he's actually just starting out in photography, and was like, hey, I've thought about taking pictures of folks on motorcycles. Anybody out there? And he put it on his Facebook. And he happens to be the program coordinator for one of the residency programs. And so I was like, absolutely. And so I was like, I'll help promote your stuff. And he's like, I'll take some photos. And he just, it's just beautiful stuff.
You guys had like the most perfect sky that night.
Yeah.
So amazing. And so I'm just checking in here with Chelly with a minute.
It's funny, I'm not someone who likes to take a lot of photos, except landscapes. Like, I'm not one who's like posing and stuff. So it's been really hard to actually find profile photos. Kathleen Dreyer is the other person who's taken profile or headshots.
These are lovely, and they are like landscape photographs. My first degree actually is in fine art with a concentration in photography, so I can actually tell you these are wonderful photographs on so many different levels. I love the angle, I love the colors. They really did an amazing job. So thank you for sharing that with us.
They'll appreciate the compliment coming from an artist, for sure.
So how did you, when did you decide that, okay, I'm gonna ride like a motorcycle in earnest? Like, so what was your first kind of like riding bike? The one that my first riding bike was a Harley Softail.
So I guess it depends how you define riding. Like, I rode in college, a small liberal arts school. I didn't have my car up there, and so I rode to get around. And honestly, I love to go fast. I love acceleration, and I love twisties. And when I'm in a crappy mood, give me some freaking twisties, right?
100%. Well, there's 2 things about twisties, right? One, you can only think about doing what you're doing when you're doing a twisty. I was just riding with Phoenix Motor Girls a couple weekends ago, and doctor, you're going to yell at me for this. I got overtired, and I usually have a rule not to ride when I'm overtired, because you and I both know that's really dangerous. But I was okay when I started, but by the time I got to the foot of Mount Mangus, I was exhausted, and I almost begged off because I was like, eh. So have you done the back of Mount Mangus up to Jerome? Oh my God, you have to do
it. Yeah.
So it's a twisties, right? And you really, I mean, it's one of those, like, sometimes you have to do 15 miles per hour because it's that much of a twisty. And you really have to be completely present. And I was sleeping. And there was really one time where I let myself go over the yellow line a little bit because I was like, it was just too much effort to get myself to, and there wasn't a car coming, so I was okay. But at that moment, I was like, I have no business being on this road right now. So I made a decision to pull off the ride after that because I knew I was overtired. But this is the thing that twisties will teach you. They humble you. Because if you're tired or you're not yourself, or you're out of whack, you feel it because you have to be completely present, right? And if you can't be completely present, you need to go park your bike, have a cup of coffee, take a nap. I've done that. I've stopped when I've been on long rides and taken a nap. I always have like a blanket on my bike so I can put it over and get underneath it if there's sun and just sleep because the pavement always wins, right? But so there's two things about the twisties. One is they're so much fun. You just, and they're also kind of scare the crap out of you at the same time, right?
Radius turns.
Yeah, think about that little thing that's annoying you in your life that's pissing you off because you're too busy keeping your bike on the road, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. It's funny as you bring up kind of that self-awareness. I think there's a sense of maturity, kind of embracing of vulnerability that I think is also important. Like, honestly, I've had patients come in who have just obviously destroyed themselves on Mount Lemon. I had a guy who had a bear that he actually hit a bear on the road, and you have to be fully present. And that's what I try. A lot of folks who don't ride, who are like, how the heck are you? How do you do this as an emergency doc? Or like, how is this a good idea? And you're 100%, it's about the awareness. It's about kind of being one with what you're doing and kind of being in that zone, which is different when you're commuting around, right? Like my first long trip, this is 1999 on the Honda Nighthawk 450, driving from essentially Cleveland to Boston and driving cold rain on, 90, all the way across, being blown all over the place by trucks.
Oh, were you doing this kind of thing?
Oh, it's horrible. It is the most foolhardy thing I've ever done, and exactly the opposite of what you're talking about the self-awareness and making good decisions.
Well, there's a difference between being on a long ride where you have no flipping choice. You've got to get where you're going. It's raining, it's whatever. And then being like around town. Around town, you get business being on a bike. If you're angry, tired, or hungry.
Yeah, or had some drinks or any of it. I'm just
anything. You have no business getting on your bike, right? But when you're on a long ride, it's different because you're in Ohio or you're in, wherever, and you need to be at a certain place at a certain time. And if you're not there, you're not there.
And just stubborn. And you're stubborn. Just stubborn. Don't be stubborn.
Oh yeah. But I've also had to beg off when I've been on a long ride and said, I need to take a nap or I need to stop or I'm not going to make this next thing. But being blown around by those trucks is like a thing, right?
Yeah, you bring up another interesting piece. I think having that, not just self-awareness, but the self-confidence to listen to your body or figure out what's important in that moment. Like, I don't like necessarily being told what to do. I never dealt with hierarchy very well. I didn't go to the military. I didn't join a surgical subspecialty. I'm glad I'm attending now. And I never joined a club because it's like my friends are all sorts of different groups. I have all sorts of different interests. I love to ride, but I've never felt like riding has defined me. And until thinking about it recently, with Shelly, Denny, and yourself, and Olivier, and just really taking a step back. I mean, why do people ride? What's it really all about? Having the independence can be just fine. And so I think there's, I don't know, for me, like I don't ride because someone else wants me to ride. I ride when I want and how I want. And I wish it was more often. But yeah, it's kind of on whatever terms you want, which is also the same thing with your creativity, right? And organizationally, my creativity or professional areas, whether it be medicine or otherwise, it's how do we figure out how to make a difference? You're doing it with the leukemia ride, which count me in. And yeah, there's some common threads for sure with riding and folks who are innovating in the world and just kind of pushing the envelope.
I'm super excited because Chelly got on. There she is. Let's see. I'm going to see if I can edit the screen here. And we're going to add her to the conversation. Let's see. Oh.
I really want to hear
she's not, I'm not seeing her. Let's see. We'll hide. Maybe she'll come back. So you and I pre-conversation were talking about this. We were talking about the fact that we're both non-traditionalist riders, and in some ways, like, I'm very much a traditional rider. You know, I ride with people, and I have the wardrobe that looks like I'm a biker, and I've started motorcycle clubs, and I ride in big packs and all that kind of stuff. And at the same time, I have a master's degree in administration. I have a heart for service, and philanthropy is a huge part of what I do. And I really believe in community, and I believe in the power of community. You know, and I believe there's a lot of bikers that are in the same category that we are. You know, they're lawyers, they're doctors, they're professionals, they're artists, they're creatives, they're loners, they're lone wolves, and they're not part of that pack culture. And they're doing things in their life that are significant. And the bike is either the exclamation point, or it's the in addition to, or it's just part of their culture. And they'll do the rally, and they'll do the camping trip with their friends once in a while. But really, when it comes down to it, for me, my relationship with my motorcycle is very personal. Yep. And I don't think I realized that as much until I didn't have one. And then when I went through a kind of a traumatic divorce, and I sold my bike that I had for 17 years, and I was bikeless for 3 years, and it was killing me, right? And my boyfriend rides a bike, so I was riding in the back, but it's not the same. You know, when you have your own bike, I was just talking with my girlfriend, Kelly. Kelly, if you're watching, she got her first bike yesterday. Yay! When you have your own bike, you become, there's two things. You no longer need, it's the keys to the kingdom. Mm-hmm. When you have your own bike, whether you're a male or the female, it's the keys to the kingdom. So you no longer need to be partnered up to attend. You no longer need someone's permission to go. You just go. And I think that guys naturally have this, because you don't generally ride on the back of a motorcycle. Some do, okay? Don't generally. So that the idea of being an individual is the first thing that appeals to me about being a biker. Mm-hmm. Is that I am in power of my own destiny, and it's me and this motorcycle, and it's the pavement, it's a twisty, and I'm present. Now, if I add people, they're the icing, they're not the cake, because me and that bike are the cake. And so you and I have that in common. Mm-hmm. I like that. And I think that all bikers have that in common to a certain degree. Mm-hmm. Because when you come home from work after you've had a crap day at the emergency room, and you just take a half an hour, a 45-minute putt, and you do that giant brain dump, right? That just changes everything.
That's why we live by Gates Pass. Yeah.
And I notice on your profile that you're also a yogi. Am I correct?
Yeah. I don't know if I identify as a yogi. We enjoy yoga. It helps keep us fit. We've done some partner acro yoga.
I saw the partner acro yoga of you and your wife, and it's luscious. I love the picture of her upside down. Her leg is completely awesome with a pointed toe, and she's giving you a kiss. It's so cool. Love that. Totally. I had to save it so I could show people. But I also practice yoga. I've been practicing yoga. Truth be told, I bought my motorcycle 6 weeks before I got sober. God knew what he was doing. He removed alcohol from my life. Yay. That's a good thing, right? And he introduced me to hot yoga, like in the same time frame. So I could never really tell if it was hot yoga or the motorcycle that helped get me sober, but I'm telling you for sure, both were absolutely important for me to become the person that I'm always becoming, because I don't have a drink or a drug with me. And that yoga and that meditative experience, to me, yoga and the bike, I know a lot of bikers are like, oh, Michelle, get the fuck out of here. It's not true, right? But yoga and motorcycle riding are very similar because it's meditation and motion. The difference between, I don't know why my computer's all of a sudden ringing, like out of nowhere, my computer rings on me. The difference between the movement in yoga and the movement in on the motorcycle is just I don't know, it's like 2 degrees of separation, right? So do you have any big trips like that you're planning now?
I don't. I've always wanted to go up to ride from here up to Alaska. And then working on the African continent, like Ewan McGregor's The Long Way Down was a hell of an inspiration. And I would love to be able to take a year and plan and ride that. But I don't have any specifics. Right now, I think we're just trying to figure out how the hell to get through winter. Right?
Yeah.
And a lot of the folks who are riding really aren't being mindful of that physical distancing or like kind of poo-pooing COVID. And the reality is that the devastation's in my face. I'm having to intubate folks in their 20s and 30s and put them on the ventilator and not know if they're going to see their family again. So I'm pretty hyper aware about that. So riding like 1, 2, 30 bikes at a time, fine. But when it starts getting larger, I'm like, I'm gonna do my own thing. No disrespect.
Yeah. Well, you know, and this is definitely a question we didn't talk about pre-show, but I definitely think that there's no way I can avoid asking this question. I was planning on going to Sturgis this year. I chose not to. I chose not to because of COVID. And my mom said something to me that kind of like smacked me in the face. I'm like, crap, I can't go. Because I was really going to muscle through and mask up and socially distance and not go to big events. But I was planning on trying to be compliant, right? But my mom said to me, Michelle, what would happen if you got COVID and you couldn't get on your bike and ride and you were in a bad area? And I went, crap, you're right. So I made a decision not to do the long ride because it's, 4 days there, 4 days back. I'm camping. I'm not fender fluff, and I'm not fluffy in any way when I make those long trips because I'm always traveling on a budget. I look forward to a time in my life when I'm not, but I'm always traveling on a budget. And I kind of like the badassness of camping. I'm just saying, you know what I mean? I camped the whole way, and I was planning on doing it solo this year. My girlfriend Jennifer Sievers has done a lot of solo trips this year all over the country, and I really admire other women that are able to do this. So I've done lots of solo trips, and I think it's great. It's a great practice to do things by yourself. But I made a decision not to go. Now, what do you think that the Sturgis rally did as far as increase the numbers in our countries? Do you think I've had reports in both directions? What's in your medical opinion? What do you think that Sturgis did as far as COVID?
Epidemiologically speaking, you have 40% of people who are asymptomatic but spreading it to others who may be vulnerable. It's challenging to track because we don't have the tracing component nearly to the level we should. We haven't had the testing to where we should. But the reality is, it's unequivocal that it was a major spreader event. And do you
think it's probably part of the reason why we're seeing our numbers increase everywhere?
Yeah, and look at the devastation in North Dakota right now. The politicization of it, and I am a nonpartisan, independent. It's not about one party or the other. It's about how do we control an infectious disease, right? How do we minimize the social and economic impact, right? Are we going to be able to have our businesses open so then we can buy our bikes and be able to enjoy the things that bring us joy? Like I was talking to my colleagues in Australia the other day. They're living a pretty normal life right now. They're not in lockdown at all. They're working, they're playing, they're congregating. It's because they took a different mentality to it.
No, Shelley Denny, who nominated you for the show, was saying that she was actually in Sturgis. She was there for her Medicine Wheel collective that she does every year ride. And she said 99% of the people weren't wearing masks, and that when they drink, people do spit. And I think that, I've definitely been in situations since COVID started with folks that were drinking, and people don't realize when they drink, they get louder. And when they get louder, they're more likely to spray, and they're more likely to come close because their hearing changes. I know I didn't believe this was true actually until I got sober. When you drink, your hearing and your proximity regulator is changed. And so that was one of the reasons why the CDC decided to close bars down, because not so much, I'm sure that the people being involved were in the space with the same thing, but when we drink, we talk louder, we're more likely to spray, we're more likely to be deviant. The reason why I got sober.
Sturgis, what are you talking about?
Right, and we're more likely to get close to each other, and I love you, man, you know what I mean, and that's what happens. So I think that if people were to have gone to Sturgis and were to have been more careful about things, it might have been a better play, but I think it's tough, you know, it's really tough. I'm going to be in Rocky Point this weekend. We have a friend getting married down there. We're going to be in a small group at a house. We won't be participating in group activities. I did see some pictures of Rocky Point where there are a lot of people out and about, and, you know, we won't be participating in large groups out and about at this point. And I think that we have Chelly on a different phone. Yay, Chelly, there you are.
Let me see, where's my camera here?
You come over a little bit closer so we can see a little bit. Cool. Now, I'm gonna do this and see if that helps, okay?
There we go.
So this is Chelly, and you have Michelle. You're on Michelle West's phone right now, so I won't show your name because you're not Michelle West. But this is Chelly Rose, and she's the biker chick in the scenario here. We were just talking about a couple things. We were talking about our first riding experience, and then we moved on to talk about hard to service. So I want to give you a chance, Chelly, to tell everybody who you are, and thank you for being a trooper with signing on. You had a little bit of technical difficulties, but you were tenacious, and I love that about you already. So tell me a little bit about yourself and what you do for a living, but also what you ride.
Hi, Michelle. Hey, Brad. Good morning. And I want to give a shout out to my husband for taking a break to fix my technical difficulties here. But my name is Michelle, and I reside here in Ganado, Arizona. It's the northern part of Arizona on the Navajo Reservation. And I'm going to introduce myself with my clans, and that's just a part of our introduction that we do as part of being a Navajo woman. So I'm going to introduce myself in my own language. Michelle West and Shia. Adon and Schlinigi ate not Jenny the Shlon Taban Habashichin, Tedesh Gijni Dashe Totsoni Ada Chanela. So that's, acknowledging my maternal and my paternal side of my family for who I am. And then the motorcycle that I ride, I started off with the Suzuki Intruder, heavy little beast. It was my father's. He was an impulsive buyer, cruising down the street in Phoenix, and he saw the bike sitting there in the street, chromed out, and he said, I have to have that bike. I have to have it. So he purchased it right then and there. And then, he was riding, and then his knees were sitting up to the handlebars. And I said, Dad, that bike really does not fit you. You should let me give it a try. So he went off and he got the Arleness edition, the Victory, the Kingpin. So he has that now. And then so the Intruder sat in the garage for quite a while. And so I pulled it out. My husband, helped me get on it. The parking lot, I'll admit, I was stuck in first gear for 3 weeks. But it's been an experience ever since, and I'm loving being on my motorcycle with my biker family, and we do a lot of rides for our military families. So, but I have my husband here. He's got to head back real quick, and Michelle, I want to introduce you to this amazing man. He's a big part of who I am today. His name is Chris West.
Hi, Chris.
Nice. Good morning.
Thanks for figuring out the technical stuff there. People don't think that bikers are technical, but you're proof they are.
Yeah, I got lucky. So.
Thank you very much. And did you leave work to come save your wife?
Yeah, just partially. I caught part of you guys' discussion and kind of what's going on. So I'm a facility superintendent for our local hospital here, and also our incident command. So we're dealing with a lot of the COVID stuff that's going on. So I'm quite busy every day. But I guys really appreciate you guys taking the time and offering Michelle to be on this forum and get information out there, and especially about the women riders, where I'm really proud of how far she's came and you know, within our group, there's a lot of women riders that have learned within the last 10 years. And it's a really good thing to see, and to see the pride that they all have, you know, when they get to ride on their own. So it's good to see. I have more room on my bike now for her to put her luggage on. So.
More room for shoes. I know.
That's how it goes. So, but again, you know, it's nice to meet you guys. You know, continue all the work that you guys do within your communities, and you know, I'm sure Michelle can share a lot of the things that we do for our military families, you know, our veterans, and you know, just for our community in general. So again, you know, you guys have a good day, have a great interview, and I'm sure she'll share a lot of the information with me later.
You can always watch it on replay on Relentless Talk Radio's page on Facebook, or you can see it on replay at youtube.relentlesstalkradio.com or on Instagram television at Relentless Talk Radio.
All right, awesome. So for all you other ladies that are out there and that are thinking about riding, you know, listen to these ladies. It's a very empowering thing for them, and it will be for you as well. So be safe, you know, be careful. Watch out for the numbers. If you get out and ride, enjoy it, and you know, always know your surroundings. Always make sure that you have a 360 view when you're on your bike, because even though we can be safe as riders, it's always the other people that we have to worry about.
100%. They're out there. They don't even realize it, but they're out to get us. I got it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, and thank you for being part of you know, a group of. I didn't realize how many Navajo people ride. And that there's an entire culture in the Navajo culture that are also bikers, Navajo bikers. And that just makes my heart so warm and happy. That's just super awesome.
Yeah, so within the Four Corners area, I mean, roughly with the 3 or 4 different groups that all the Navajo riders partake in, the different organizations, you're probably looking around anywhere from 400 to 500 riders that have came out on rides that we've done in the previous years before. So
I cannot wait to ride with you. I can't wait.
So,
how awesome.
Yeah, it's a good thing. I mean, there's a lot of emotional rides that we have, and just to see our people come out and support our military, the tradition and the Navajo people in itself have gotten a lot of compliments from outside of the riding groups to see the support that we show for our military. So. You know, it's not us. It's all of the riders that partake in it, and you know, show that honor and you know, that remembrance, and you know, for all of them. So,
I think that it's something that people should talk about more. That people of color and Native Americans that are serving in our military, that are under recognized for their service to our country. I think that, you know, any Native American that serves our country deserves an extra medal right there, because, you know, when we took, well, my family is Irish and Italian, came at a different time, but when the United States was first colonized, we definitely didn't do the right thing by your culture. And so the fact that you guys still step up to protect our country is pretty amazing, really, when you think about it. The same thing with African Americans and Jamaicans and other people of color who were brought here against their will. It's amazing that you guys step up the way that you do. Thank you for your service on multiple levels.
Yeah, and I'll leave you with this. We're part of a group that we're helping, the honoring and remembering, supporting. There was an organization that was handing out these flags specifically to Gold Star families. And we were at a kind of a meet and greet, kind of a gathering. This was a couple of years back, and of course it was, you know, a white male that started the group. But you know, he asked a question to a couple of the veterans and, you know, a couple of the riders, and was just curious, and you know, kind of what you were explaining. He said, you know, with your land being taken away from your ancestors a long time ago, and for the Native Americans, they have such a high percentage of their population rate to be enlisting into the military. He's like, what do you think is the reason for that? And there was a veteran there, and he said, you know, all the bad things that might have happened in the past to our ancestors, you know, and the things that still happen, not only to the Native people, but all people of color. He's like, no matter what, even though the land was taken from our ancestors, it's still our land, and we're still going to protect it. So that was one of the best things that I've ever heard from a veteran, you know, of kind of justifying why the Native American people still take such an interest in defending this land and this country. So
beautiful.
Well, amen to that. I mean, that's really amazing. I mean, my mom is from Ireland, and she had to earn her right to be here by testing and to doing the citizens thing. And my dad is first generation Italian. My grandfather had the same thing. So for me and my family, who are also veterans, my godfather and my father both served, it's a privilege to be here for my family. And so therefore we protect it because it's a privilege, like any other in life that you want to take care of. So thank you so much for tuning in and letting us know your experience. Thank you so much for
no problem.
your time.
Yeah.
So I'll nominate him for your next
Awesome. Awesome. 100%. Have a great rest of your day.
All right, you guys too, and have a great interview.
Nice to meet you.
That's a really great segue into the whole idea of having hearts for service and how bikers are definitely people that are, it just seems like universally, anybody who rides has a very deep, wide heart space for whatever it is they believe in, whether it's politics or it's healthcare, or it's, in my case, I was nominated for there's many organizations that I give to, but one of the reasons why I started Relentless Bikers is because I'm doing a poker run for the Leukemia Lymphoma Society next year in April, because I was nominated for the Woman of the Year. And I just know the best people to ask for help with fundraising are bikers. I just know that bikers have a great heart for service. And so I decided to start doing Relentless Talk Radio this year so we could basically build up awareness around that poker run. But what I've discovered is by having this be a tag team where I asked you guys to nominate the next couple, the next couple, the next couple, we're attracting a group of people that have a very deep, wide heart for service. And so, Chelly, we're both Michelles. It just occurred to me. I said earlier Michelle West, but you're Chelly Rose.
Yeah.
So you're CHELLY as opposed to SHLEY. So that's kind of, so tell me about the whole veterans component of what you do and why it's so important to you.
It's very important to me because when we first started writing back in 2006, we've been doing a lot of these welcome home escort rides and funeral escorts for our military families. And on these rides, our Navajo reservation is so vast, it's so huge. And sometimes we even end up going on dirt roads to meet a request. But when we're on these rides, I've met so many Vietnam veterans, and the welcome homes that they received, it was very sad. Mm-hmm. And my husband's dad is a Vietnam vet, and he recalls, coming home and, people would spit on them. They were not given that proper welcome home. And so that was really touching on, my part. I have Vietnam veterans in my family, my husband, and just, when we're riding through Navajo country and you look at every house off the road, I guarantee you, each household member knows of a family that has served. And, going back to the Korean War, the Vietnam, World War II, and I must say that our indigenous relatives, they serve at the highest per capita, and they enlist to serve our country here in the U.S. And that's something that, that it is touching. And that's, one of the reasons that we've gotten into this.
So it's per capita for people that serve. Native Americans are the highest percentage?
Yes. Native Americans, they're the highest percentage of, to enlist.
See, now I wouldn't have even remotely, and I'm looking at your pictures now to share with you guys while I'm working here. I wouldn't have even, Brad, would you have even guessed that? Did you know that?
It's like breaking it down. I guess I break it down, yes, is how many folks do I know from growing up or otherwise who joined the military? Not many. My African American or Caucasian friends, but I know plenty of our Indigenous friends who have at least several family members. My wife actually works for a Diné college, and so we have a little more familiarity. Heather has more familiarity than I do with the ins and outs, but that shouldn't be surprising. And these are the types of things we need to celebrate.
In Vermont, we do have Indigenous people in Vermont where I grew up, but obviously not as many reservation situations. So I didn't actually grow up knowing a lot of people of color. And in fact, the people of color that I did know were wealthy. So my experience with non-Caucasian people was different for me, right? So it's kind of funny how you get raised in your culture and you get to see what you see. And for me, the first time I actually had an opportunity to touch a Black person was in college. And I remember being embarrassed by that. And he was definitely a very dark man, beautiful, like eggplant cut, like that lovely, like I would kill for that skin. And I remember saying to him, I know this sounds odd, but I've never touched a Black person. And I touched him. I was like, wow, all this division that we have over skin color, we feel just the same. You know, it's not like Black skin feels different than white skin or a Native American skin or Indian skin, or it's all skin, you know? And so it really was a very powerful experience for me. So I really appreciate and I continue to learn, you know, because I have a growth mindset, I continue to learn different stuff about just different cultures. And this is just like an not earth shattering. I guess it is kind of earth shattering for me. It's amazing to me that there's that many Native American people and Indigenous people that are in our military. So Brad, you serve like on so many different levels. It's crazy. In the emergency room every day, you know, basically wearing a hazmat suit. I mean, you're completely covered at this point. I mean, I can't even imagine what it's like to go into work every day. But you've also served by being an assistant professor at ASU, teaching global partnership programs, I think is the title that you had. And also global emergency care. So you're doing so many things on so many levels. Why is service so important to you? I mean, it's obvious. It's in every area of your life, and you happen to be a biker. Yeah,
it really, I mean, looking back on it, it goes down back to age 16, and it's really about health disparities, right? Whether I'm talking about capacity development work in Uganda, or whether we're talking about pathways to healthcare professions for our Indigenous students, or creating equity regardless of where you live in the States. It's really about moving towards equity and having an equity mindset, understanding the role of colonialism, and both domestically and internationally, and understanding my own white male privilege at that, and how do we finally use that for a force of good, right? And I'm surrounded by, forgive my language, badass, brilliant women who I've been working with on projects spanning the whole, working with depressed youth all the way. Yeah, all my projects are anchored by really brilliant women. And so looking at disparities in gender, looking at disparities in race, both within healthcare, like we need to have a representative body of physicians, nurses, respiratory therapists, healthcare workers generally, if we're going to actually reduce disparity within our populations. And to recognize,
one of the reasons why I started this show too with a man and a woman, and I also have another show that I'm doing this year called Biker Chicks Unite, because in the biker culture, it's the same thing. When I first started writing 35 years ago, it was me and 500 guys, you know, and it was revolutionary. Like when I came home and said, "Mom, I'm buying a motorcycle," she's like, "What? I don't get, you know, you can't, why are you even on a motorcycle, number one? And number two, do you have to, I mean, really?" So I think that the motorcycle culture is an example of how so many strong women, you had to be strong just to ride. And now people like Chelly and both Chelly Denny and Chelly Rose, Michelle West, they're examples that I interviewed Jennifer Sievers from Motorcycle Princess a couple of months ago, and also Jessica Mose, who's the leader of Phoenix Motor Girls. There's a really strong contingent of women bikers here in Arizona, and many of them are healthcare workers.
I think there's a sense of empowerment that comes from being in that space.
So I think it's awesome that you're looking at this as a white male and looking at discrepancies race-wise and gender-wise. That's very high functioning for you.
Well, it's incumbent upon us, right? It's that sense of privilege. I mean, even the work we're doing with HCW Hosted, really trying to even just get healthcare workers recognized as not being expendable. Right, and being better supported with regard to safe quarantine and mental emotional health support throughout COVID has been an upwards push, and it shouldn't be. Just like our Indigenous brothers and sisters who are enrolling or enlisting in the military at a higher rate than the rest of us, than the majority, and yet we're not, as the majority, pushing for health equity, education equity. It doesn't make sense, right?
When I was in grad school, one of my courses, I'm thinking it was probably economics, was talking about one of the best things that you can do for a country is to support the mothers. Because when you bring women up, you actually bring up the entire society. So if you do an angel funding, there's a lot of different organizations that will help a woman start a business. Mm-hmm. The ripple effect of that is huge.
Yep.
So, and I do a lot of stuff. I have a Facebook group called the Hot Tamales, which I get my girlfriends together. We get dressed up to go out, and people think it's kind of light and fluffy, but not really, because I can't tell you how many women I know. You know, I'm kind of you know, you might not be able to tell right now with my Scorpius hat on, but, you know, I've got my Hog Wild lipstick on. We'll talk about that in a bit later. But I think that it's really important for women to celebrate being women, either on a motorcycle or off. And I love getting my girlfriends together and getting them dressed up for themselves and each other, as opposed to going on a date or a work-related thing.
Totally.
And it's a self-esteem thing. When I had my salon back east, I partnered with the Girl Scouts, and I would have self-esteem building classes that would come in, because a lot of the girls in Vermont, a bigger percentage, I think, maybe than other states, have their moms are hippies, and there's nothing wrong with being a hippie, but they didn't learn how to put makeup on. And it's not like you can choose to put makeup on or not choose to put makeup on. But if you need to put makeup on for an interview and you don't know how to put it on, there's an insecurity that comes with that seeps into your interview. So doing your hair and applying your makeup and knowing, like, you know, a lot of the girls know how to goth makeup. That's not a really good way to go to a job interview, right? So I learned an awful lot about the power of being a woman and building self-esteem within the female culture that is not often talked about, you know, like getting dressed up, going out, you know, putting a pair of heels on, you know, when do you wear nylons, when do you don't? I mean, and all of that stuff. And that trickles right down to going to college, you know, getting your degree. And moving into if you haven't got that when you're young, when you move into professional life as a nurse or a doctor or a senator or whatever, if you come up with those inequities in the beginning, it trickles over into your professional life.
Totally does. 100%.
And it trickles over into your motorcycle life. You know, I know how I felt about myself was affected when I was just fender fluff, and I'm not saying fender fluff is bad. I mean, there's nothing wrong with riding the back of the bike, but I'm a driver. So when I wasn't driving, I felt like I had to step back a little bit. Mm-hmm. And when I got back on that bike, I went, oh, I didn't even realize I was doing that. Like I was able to put a couple male friends in their place a couple weeks ago because I was back on the bike. Mm-hmm. I didn't feel like I had to be subservient. And I think that women have that conflict constantly. And I think races have that conflict with being subservient and substandard and not stepping forth in our energy. And I think the motorcycle helps me to do that. I think that doing things in the community that gives back, when you give back and you put yourself in a power position by giving, it changes your mindset. You know, so giving is a power play in some ways, because when you're giving, you're powerful.
Well, we need to approach it and with an more of an equity mindset, right? This is when people are giving and you're creating power differentials, you're absolutely right. And that's what I mean when I say like colonial approaches to whether it's about global health or relationships in general, but growing with people, really doing the deep listening piece, embracing vulnerability on whatever topic we're talking about, or whatever change we're trying to catalyze, and having that being driven by the population that is requesting it, us to go in and change others. It doesn't work in our personal relationships. How many times we've tried to like change a partner, right? Or have a partner change us? No. We have to leverage our privilege.
And celebrate people where they're at. And be powerful from where you're at, and know that my power doesn't diminish somebody else's power or vice versa. It's
interesting you brought up the kind of different ways that people articulate what I essentially call blowing up the patriarchy, right? There's different standards for it. Some people are going to say, I'm not wearing makeup for anybody, right? But that might be something that goes against them being able to move up in the workplace, which would also help blow up the patriarchy, right? So yeah, meeting people where they are, for those of them who sit in a position of privilege across the different types of intersectionality, being aware of our implicit bias and being really driven to do some deep listening from folks who don't have that positionality, and then helping give up the pulpit or give up that microphone a little bit and have other people's voices be heard. So that's what I think on an individual level, to then thinking about collaborative group levels, to societally. Those are the directions we're really going to need to work towards if we're talking about having a more equitable future moving forward.
You know, whenever I have a party or I host a ride or I have a big event, I always make it all inclusive. Mm-hmm. And I was talking with a friend the other day, and they said, Michelle, that confuses people. And I thought to myself, because you got to listen to feedback, right? Mm-hmm. I think that people think that by limiting things or controlling things, it makes it better, or it controls the potential service not being had the right way, or stuff. But I really do believe that when you bring people together with an open heart and you take your hands off the wheel and just let people interact, the most beautiful things happen that you would never have expected.
100%.
I love when I have my art shows, and I'll have another one next December, and it'll be influenced by, my art comes from listening. I interview people. That's how Relentless Talk Radio started. And the interviews inspire blogs or some type of writing episode. And in the process of the interviewing and the writing, a painting happens. Okay, there's one behind me that was inspired by conscious capitalism, and the book and the director here of the organization. But when you step back and listen, and you allow people to interact in a way that is of their own making,
create the space, create the safe space to do so.
And you can do that in the motorcycle culture. You can do that at work. You can do that in your family. You can do that in your relationship. And you can say, hey, you know what? You can show up as you are and have your own experience, you know? And, you know, when you're riding together in a group, you're going to say, here's some safety things we're going to talk about. And you know, the slower people can ride to the back if you want to slow down, and the faster people can ride to the front, and we're going to space out so that we're safe. If you need to beg off, go ahead and do that. You know, here's a telephone number if you get lost, right? You have some safety things that happen, but then you let people have their own ride. And that's one of the things we say in the motorcycle culture is ride your own ride. And I think that if everybody were to ride their own ride and let everybody else ride their own ride in life, in business, in the hospital, you know, politically, you know, if we just let ourselves have our own space and gave permission to other people to do the same, I've always found the group conscience is magnificent. The most unexpected things happen. And Relentless Biker is an example of the most unexpected things could happen. Like, you and I never would have met had it not been for me getting on my motorcycle and meeting Jessica Moles and Jennifer Sievers. And they nominated the first two and the next two, and now you are meeting. So you are a chance meeting that's 4 levels deep at this point.
Shelly's someone there too, right? Like, yeah.
So that's what happens when we open our hearts up to happenstance, that the most magnificent things can happen.
I live by serendipity and kind of carpe diem. And you have like again, I'm always conscious of my privilege or our privilege. How do we create the spaces? How do we enable others who might not have that opportunity, or might not have that self-assuredness, or it might even be a possibility? How do we enable folks to have that imagination for to realize their potential, and whatever way or whatever realm that is, not for us to dictate, but yeah, to help unbridle them. For sure.
And you know, Chelly just came back in with us, so we're gonna pop her in. God bless you, Chelly. I love your tenacity, girl. You just like, you know what? we have.
You know, I was listening in, but you know, a lot of it comes back to karma. You know, treat others like the way that you want to be treated, and you know, a lot of compassion. Compassion comes. Just having the honor to do what you love to do. And, you know, I've always, I've read this piece where don't ever let anyone make you feel bad for caring, you know, and it's because those traits are a gift. And being Navajo, you know, those traits it's a gift from our holy deities. And, you know, it'll become a problem if we stop caring and if we stop loving. And with where we're at now in this pandemic, and with most of our rides being to a halt, but you know, there's still a way that we can lend a hand. There's still a way that we can help, and you know, we can support one another. And just love goes a long ways. It really does. Just
that's
have
exactly
love.
This year was because I thought, you know, how I was planning on getting out there in the communities by organizing a bunch of rides.
Yeah.
And to do that, I thought, well, how else can I get this message out about having a heart for service and LLS and what I'm doing in April, and how can I start to let my tentacles reach out and touch people in a way that they'll come next year and help us end blood cancer? Because if we're able to end blood cancer, we're able to end blood cancers. It's a huge, big first component in solving the cancer issue. When my dad died of cancer in February on Valentine's Day night, I accepted the nomination for the Woman of the Year, and I am committed to getting the word out there. And I would have never had done this show as early had it not been for COVID. Mm-hmm. And the amount of relationships that I've been able to create, even in this short period of time in episode 3, is amazing. So I think that there's always an opportunity if you don't limit yourself. If you don't limit yourself by having things go the way you expected it to go. You know, just letting yourself get on the bike and I love it when I get lost on my motorcycle. Have you ever done that? And we'll end with this. You get lost on your motorcycle and you end up like in some podunk bar in somewhereville, and you meet some guy that you never would have met and his wife, and they make you an apple pie, or there's something that happens that you would never had happened had you not gotten lost. And I think COVID is a perfect example. I think there's a lot of things that will happen in our society that for the better because of COVID. You know what I'm saying? So I just want to close with, we have about 2 minutes left. I want to keep this under an hour so I can just very easily load it to Instagram television. Brad, how can people get a hold of you to learn more about the things that you're doing?
So you can go to hcwhosted.org and globalemergencycare.org.
Awesome.
And then my Twitter handle is Dreifuss MD.
Awesome. So it's DREIFUSS, right?
MD.
And how about you, Chelly? How can people find out about the rides that you guys are doing for the veterans? Pretty quickly.
We have a biker family group page on Facebook, and it's under Biker Family. Remember, honor, and support. And you can log on there, and all of the requests that come in, we share all of the rides that come in and any announcements or any other upcoming events will be posted on there, and I will definitely share your cancer ride. And I will tell you that we have an amazing, amazing group of biker family, Blue Star mothers, and, you know, just all of our veterans and our non-veterans. So, you know, I will help you get that word out, and we will come and support your ride.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I also want to thank our sponsor today, which is Scorpius Gear, which is my hat, Hog Wild lipstick, which is my lips, and also Buddy Stubbs Harley Davidson. So, and we just went over an hour anyway, so I'm going to have to do a little bit of editing. What are you going to do? So I really appreciate the two of you coming on and taking the time. I see a lifelong friendship being developed, and I really appreciate that. I think that friends make the world go round. I think there's nothing better than meeting people, you know, like-minded, kindred spirits. And Chelly, I love your tenacity, how you just kept on coming back. That is just I take with me.
I apologize for all the technical difficulties, but Brad, it was nice to meet you. And, you know, we really would like to invite you guys to come out for a ride up here on our Navajo reservation. And Brad, I understand your wife talks Navajo. We will give her Navajo one-on-one, and we will get her to be speaking Navajo fluently.
She introduced herself really well. Yeah.
That's super cool. And you know what? We'll align all of our schedules and tag Relentless Talk Radio and let me know so I can shout it out. I love the work that you're doing. It's just so important. So important. So that's a wrap. That's episode 3 of Relentless Biker. We definitely know that we have one guest next week. Gavin Fax is going to be coming on, and we have one other person that will be coming on, which I think might be Michelle's husband, but we'll talk with Brad about who he has as well. And we definitely, I'm going to be doing 2 shows starting January, so we'll probably have you guys nominate somebody in January too. So it's a tag team. I know you guys both know people that I need to know. So I'm super excited about the next show, which will be the second Friday in, God, it's second Friday in December already. I just can't even believe it. Crazy. COVID has just sucked up 2020. Just poof, right? Just crazy.
Hey, Michelle, just real quick, I want to thank you for inspiring, you know, just the healthy lifestyle. You know, I'm making progress towards the American Cancer Society, the Southwest 60-Mile Challenge. And, you know, every morning you inspire me to, you know, just meditate, get on with my day. And I go out on my runs. And, you know, it's nice to have my children join me. So I just wanted to say thank you for that. And Brad, you know, we honor our first responders. We have a lot of our sister writers that are RN nurses who work the ER rooms, you know, just day and night. And, you know, we thank you guys. Thank you for everything that you are doing for, you know, especially through this whole pandemic. We appreciate you. And, you know, we will keep you in our prayers.
Thank you. Thank you for appreciating. Yeah. And hopefully we will see each other sooner than later post this harass.
We will make it happen.
Coordinate on Messenger and get us together for a ride before it gets too cold, because we're all website Arizona, right? But I also want to say thanks so much, Chelly, for mentioning the health and fitness thing. Another thing that I'm really on a mission to do this year, since we're already over time, I might as well mention it, is I really think that the motorcycle culture needs to pay a little bit more attention to their health. And so
exactly.
Health fitness related, and Chelly just mentioned a group that I have going on right now called the Relentless Mindset Challenge, where I'm encouraging people to read something pretty cool in the morning, meditate on it for 5 minutes, and to, you know, share about what they're learning with the group. And I always think that, you know, if your mind is right, everything else gets better. I'll have another challenge going on through the beginning of 2021. I haven't named it yet, but it'll be Relentless something challenge. And
we look forward to it.
I think that it's important to have a place where you can have accountability and inspiration as it relates to health and fitness. And I think that people don't realize that health and fitness really is an inside job more than it is an outside job. It's about making a decision to pay attention to your health and fitness, as opposed to stopping at the diner and getting the greasy hamburger and the greasy French fries and the greasy grease with the grease and the sugar, to maybe make some healthier choices when you're out on the road, so that you can, you know, not put on those 10, 15, 20, 30 pounds that a lot of bikers are carrying right now, and be less likely to have an issue with COVID or any other health related situation where your health is diminished because you're overweight and you're under exercised, right? So yeah. I'm really on a mission to kind of address a little bit more of that in the biking culture, because I think the better in shape you are mentally and physically, the more you can ride your dang bike.
Yeah.
Let's get our priorities straight.
My daughter sends us a meme, her father and I, and she says, if you don't make time for your wellness now, you will make time for your illness the older you get. So
the doctor shaking his head, yes, 100%. 100%. Great place to stop. And again, I want to thank my sponsors at Scopius Gear, the Hog Wild Cosmetics, and Buddy Stubbs Harley Davidson for supporting me and this show. And I hope you guys have a really fantastic Friday. Right side and never side down, okay?
Thanks all.
See you later.
Thank you, Michelle. See you, Brad.